She was his girlfriend, but her heart was with me. I can still see it so clearly, the first time I caught Lily staring at me across the room, her eyes holding mine just a fraction too long, her smile carrying a weight I wasn't supposed to notice. My best friend, Jake, was right there, laughing, telling some dumb story about his boss, completely oblivious to the way my chest tightened, like I was holding a secret I hadn't even admitted to myself. How do you even begin to process that? Knowing the one person you're absolutely not allowed to want is the only one you can't stop thinking about. My name's Ethan, and this is the story of how I fell in love with my best friend's girlfriend, and how it shattered everything I thought I knew about loyalty, love, and who I was. It started so small, so innocent. A glance here, a laugh there, the kind of fleeting moments you tell yourself mean nothing. But then came the texts, late at night, when Jake was asleep or out with his work buddies. "You get me," she'd write, her words lighting up my phone at 2 a.m., each one a tiny spark that I knew, deep down, would ignite something dangerous. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding, torn between the guilt clawing at me and this undeniable pull toward her. Lily was everything. Smart, with this sharp wit that cut through the noise, funny in a way that didn't try too hard, and this quiet intensity in her eyes that made you feel like you were the only person in the world when she looked at you. Jake loved her, no question. He'd talk about her like she was his future, his forever. But as the weeks went on, I started to wonder, did she love him back? Or was there a chance, however small, that she felt what I was feeling? Forbidden love isn't just about wanting what you can't have. It's about knowing you're betraying someone you'd take a bullet for. Jake and I had been through it all. High school fights where we had each other's backs. Late night talks about our dreams of getting out of our small town. The kind of friendship that felt unbreakable. He was my brother, not by blood, but by choice. But every time Lily's hand brushed mine, every time her laugh hit me like a wave, I felt myself slipping deeper into something I couldn't control. One kiss, that's all it would take to destroy everything. And God help me, I wanted it. I wanted her. So, what do you do when your heart picks the one person it shouldn't? Stick with me, because this story doesn't end the way you're expecting. Let's go back to the beginning, to the summer that changed everything. Jake and I were 22, fresh out of college, scraping by in a tiny apartment in Chicago that smelled faintly of mildew and cheap beer. We'd been best friends since we were kids, the kind of bond where you know every scar, every fear, every stupid thing the other's done. Jake was the loud one, always cracking jokes, always the guy who could make a room light up. I was the quiet one, the guy who overthought everything, who noticed the details others missed. Maybe that's why I saw her first. Lily walked into our lives at a rooftop party one humid July night. Jake had met her at some bar the week before, and when he brought her over, it was like the air shifted. She had dark hair that fell in loose waves, eyes that seemed to see straight through you, and a laugh that felt like it was meant just for you. Jake was head over heels, grinning like a kid as he introduced her. "Ethan, this is Lily. She's the one, man," he'd say, and I'd nod, forcing a smile, because what else could you do when your best friend was that happy? At first, I was genuinely happy for him. Jake deserved someone like her, someone who could match his energy, who could keep up with his chaos. But then Lily started hanging out with us more, becoming a fixture in our little world. She'd come over to our place, sprawled on the couch with a beer, trading sarcastic jabs with Jake while I sat there, watching from the edges. I started noticing things. How she'd roll her eyes at Jake's terrible puns but laugh anyway. How she asked me about my art, my sketches, really listening, not just nodding along like most people. Jake didn't notice those moments, but I did. And every time, I hated myself a little more for it. One night, about a month after they started dating, we were all at our apartment, playing cards. Jake was drunk, rambling about some drama at his job, and Lily caught my eye across the table. Her lips curved into this small, private smile, like we were sharing a secret neither of us had spoken. My heart slammed against my ribs, and I looked away fast, but it was too late. That moment burned itself into me, and I knew I was in trouble. I tried to shove it down, to tell myself it was just a crush, something I could ignore. Jake was my best friend. He'd been there when my dad walked out, when I flunked my first semester, when I felt like I had nothing. He deserved her. I didn't. But then came the texts. It started harmlessly. Memes, dumb jokes about Jake's awful cooking, the kind of stuff you'd send anyone. Except they kept coming, later and later, when the world was quiet, and it was just me and my phone. "You awake?" She'd rumbling about some fight she'd had with her mom, her voice heavy with emotion. I was across from her, trying not to stare, when the silence stretched, thick and electric. Then she looked at me, her eyes locking onto mine, and said, "Ethan, why do you never talk about how you feel?" My mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" I managed, but I knew exactly what she meant. She slid closer, her knee brushing mine, her voice soft but sure. "You know what I mean." And then, before I could stop it, she leaned in and kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, like she was testing the water. But then I kissed her back, and it was like the world exploded into flames. Every ounce of guilt, every warning screaming in my head, burned away in that moment. It was just her and me, and nothing else existed. We pulled apart, breathless, and the guilt slammed back like a tidal wave. "We can't," I said, my voice trembling. "Jake." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know," she whispered. "But I don't love him, Ethan. I haven't for a while. I think I love you." Those words were everything I dreamed of hearing, and everything I feared. Because now it was real. Now we weren't just flirting with betrayal, we were living it. For the rest of Jake's trip, we were reckless, like addicts chasing a high. Stolen moments in dark corners, secret touches that sent my heart racing, late-night talks that felt like confessions of the soul. Every second with her made me feel alive in a way I'd never known, like I was finally awake after years of sleepwalking. But every time Jake's name lit up my phone, the guilt stabbed deeper, a knife twisting in my chest. I was lying to my best friend, the one person who'd always had my back, who'd carried me through my darkest days. And Lily, she was just as torn. She'd cry sometimes, after we'd been together, her voice breaking as she said she didn't want to hurt him but couldn't stop what she felt. We were drowning in our own choices, trapped in a current we'd created, with no shore in sight. When Jake came back from Seattle, everything got worse. He was the same as always, loud, happy, calling her babe, like nothing had changed. But every time he touched her, every time he smiled at her, I felt like I was suffocating. Lily and I tried to act normal, to keep up the facade, but the tension was there, crackling in every glance, every pause. I started avoiding them both, making excuses to stay late at work or skip our usual hangouts, but Jake noticed. "You okay, man?" he'd ask, his brow furrowed with concern, and I'd lie through my teeth, hating myself more with every word. Lily's texts slowed down, but when they came, they were desperate, raw. "I can't keep pretending," she'd write. "We need to tell him." The thought of telling him made my stomach churn. How do you look your best friend in the eye and admit you've been in love with his girlfriend? That she loves you back? That you've been sneaking around behind his back, stealing moments that were never yours to take? I could already see the betrayal in his eyes, the way his face would crumple. But the alternative, keeping this secret, living this lie, was eating me alive, gnawing at my soul. The longer it went on, the more I knew there was no happy ending waiting for us. Someone was going to get hurt. Probably all of us. The weeks after Jake's trip were like walking a tightrope stretched over a pit of fire. Lily and I tried to pull back, to draw a line, to be just friends again. We'd make promises to ourselves, swearing we'd stop, but then we'd end up alone, and the pull was too strong, like gravity or fate or some cruel force we couldn't fight. Her hand would brush mine, or she'd look at me a second too long, and we'd be right back where we started, tangled in each other, chasing that high despite the cost. Every moment with her was electric, a rush I couldn't quit, but the lows were brutal. I'd see Jake laughing with her, talking about their future, trips they'd take, a house they'd buy someday, and I'd feel like the worst person on earth, a traitor wearing his best friend's trust like a stolen coat. One night, about a month after Jake's trip, the tension boiled over. We were all at a dive bar downtown, the kind with sticky floors and dim lights. Jake was in rare form, buying rounds, telling stories that had everyone laughing. Lily was quieter than usual, her eyes flicking to me when she thought no one was watching. I tried to focus on my drink, on the music pounding through the speakers, on anything but the way her presence pulled at me. But then Jake got a call from work and stepped outside, leaving us alone at the table. "Ethan," she said, her voice low, urgent, cutting through the noise. "We can't keep doing this. It's not fair to him." I nodded, my throat so tight I could barely breathe. "I know. But what do we do? Tell him and blow everything up?" She looked down, her fingers twisting the edge of her napkin into knots. "I don't know how to stop feeling this way," she said, her voice cracking like glass. I've tried so hard." Her words broke something in me, and I wanted to reach for her, to pull her close and tell her it would be okay, but I couldn't. Not there. Maybe not ever. When Jake came back, he was oblivious, laughing like nothing was wrong, but I could feel the cracks forming, the ground shifting beneath us. He started noticing things, how Lily and I avoided eye contact, how I'd slip out of the room when they got too close. He'd ask me what was wrong, his voice casual but his eyes sharp, and I'd lie, mumbling something about work stress, the words tasting like ash. But Jake wasn't stupid. One night, he cornered me in our kitchen, the fluorescent light harsh above us. "You've been weird, man," he said, his eyes searching mine, looking for answers I couldn't give. "Is it me? Did I do something?" I wanted to spill everything, to confess and beg for his forgiveness, to end the lies right there. But I couldn't. "It's nothing," I said, and the lie felt like swallowing broken glass. Lily was struggling just as much. She'd call me late at night, her voice trembling, saying she couldn't keep pretending, couldn't keep living this double life. "I'm going to break up with him," she'd say, her words fierce with conviction. "I can't keep lying like this." But then she'd see Jake, and he'd be so good to her, so kind, planning dates and talking about their future, and she'd falter. "He doesn't deserve this," she'd cry, her voice muffled through the phone. "But neither do we." I didn't know what to say. I loved her, more than I'd ever loved anyone, but I loved Jake too, in a different way, the way you love someone who's been your anchor through every storm. Losing either of them felt like losing a piece of myself, like cutting out my own heart. The tension kept building, heavy as a storm cloud ready to burst. Jake started asking questions, not directly, but in that subtle, probing way he had. "You and Lily seem close," he'd say, half smiling like it was a joke, but his eyes were cold, watching me, waiting for me to slip. I'd brush it off, change the subject, but I could feel him studying us, piecing things together. Lily started pulling away from both of us, retreating into herself, and I didn't know if it was guilt or fear or something else entirely. I was losing her, and I was losing Jake, and I was powerless to stop it. Then came the night that broke everything open. It was a Saturday, and we were supposed to go to a concert, just the three of us, some indie band we all liked. But Jake got called into work at the last minute, some emergency he couldn't dodge. "You guys go," he said, waving us off with a grin. "Have fun." I should have said no. I should have seen the danger, known how thin the ice was beneath us. But Lily looked at me, her eyes pleading, full of that quiet intensity, and I couldn't say no to her. I never could. The concert was a blur of sound and bodies, the music loud, the crowd wild, but all I could focus on was her hand brushing mine in the dark, her body swaying close as the bass thrummed through us. It felt like we were in our own world, a stolen bubble where nothing else mattered. Afterward, we ended up at a greasy diner, just the two of us, sitting across from each other with cold coffee and a weight between us. "I'm going to tell him," she said suddenly, her voice steady for the first time in weeks, cutting through the hum of the jukebox. "Tomorrow. I'm breaking up with him. I can't keep doing this to him. Or to us." I stared at her, my heart racing, a mix of hope and dread flooding my veins. And then what? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She reached for my hand under the table, her fingers warm against mine. Then we figure it out. Together. For a moment, I let myself believe it could work. That we could be together, that Jake would somehow understand, that we could all find a way to move forward. But deep down, I knew better. Love doesn't erase betrayal. It doesn't undo the pain you inflict. And Jake wasn't the kind of guy to just let something like this slide. The next day, Lily went to Jake's place to end things. I stayed home, pacing our apartment, my phone burning a hole in my pocket. I waited for her texts, for some sign it was done, but the hours dragged on, and nothing came. Instead, Jake showed up at our door, his face pale, his eyes red and raw, like he'd been crying or fighting not to. "You knew," he said, his voice low, dangerous, each word a blade. "You knew she was going to dump me, and you didn't say a damn thing." I froze, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break my ribs. He didn't know the full truth, but he knew enough, and that was bad enough. "She told me everything," he said, stepping closer, his eyes boring into mine. "How she's been confused, how she's been leaning on you. You let her think you were just her friend, Ethan, but I see it now. I see the way you look at her." I opened my mouth to deny it, to say something, anything, but the words stuck in my throat, choking me. He laughed, a bitter, broken sound that cut deeper than any punch could. "You're my best friend," he said, his voice cracking. "And you let this happen." He didn't hit me. He didn't yell. He just turned and walked out, and that silence was worse than any fight we'd ever had. Lily called me later, sobbing so hard I could barely make out her words. She told Jake she didn't love him anymore, but she hadn't told him about us. "Not yet. He's broken, Ethan," she said, her voice raw with pain. "I can't do this." And just like that, she was gone too. A week later, she moved out of the city, leaving without a goodbye, leaving me and Jake to pick up the pieces of a friendship that was too shattered to save. I loved her. I think I always will, in some quiet, aching part of my heart. But love doesn't mean you get a happy ending. Sometimes it just means you lose everything: your best friend, the girl you love, the person you thought you were. Jake and I don't talk anymore. The apartment feels like a tomb without him, all our shared history reduced to silence. And Lily, she's a ghost now, a memory that haunts me, a song I can't stop hearing no matter how hard I try. So I'm asking you, would you betray your best friend for love? Have you ever loved someone you knew you shouldn't? Drop your story in the comments, because I know I'm not alone in this mess. And if this story hit you hard, if it made you feel the weight of those impossible choices, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's talk about the moments when love and loyalty collide, when you're forced to choose and no choice feels right.